Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going deep into the world of Franz Kafka.
Oh, yeah.
And his work, often leaves people with this sense of unease, like a little dread even.
Yeah.
And since you're interested in writing, we figured there's no better way to really explore different writing styles
Right.
than by taking a deep dive into the mind of the man who gave us the term Kafkaesque.
Kafkaesque. It's really interesting how Kafka worked a pretty mundane job, you know?
Yeah.
He was an insurance clerk, and
Yeah.
he created these incredibly intricate worlds in his writing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he was plagued by this really deep-seated self-doubt. He questioned his own abilities, even the act of writing itself.
Oh, wow.
And I think you can see that struggle reflected in his characters a lot of the time.
Yeah.
They often feel lost and uncertain in their own existence.
It's almost like he was living this double life.
Yeah.
You know, the insurance clerk by day and this, tormented writer by night.
Yeah.
And speaking of tormented, he even asked his friend Max Brod to destroy all of his unpublished manuscripts
I know, it's crazy.
after his death.
It's wild.
Thankfully, Brod disobeyed.
Right.
Can you imagine a world without the Metamorphosis, the Trial, or the Castle?
It's mind-boggling to think that those works almost disappeared.
Right.
But, clearly Kafka tapped into something that's very universal and enduring. Kafkaesque has gone way beyond just literature at this point. It's become like this shorthand for anything that's bizarre or illogical.
Right.
Like bureaucratic nightmares that just leave you feeling powerless.
We've all been there,
Totally.
stuck in a system that just makes no sense. Drowning in paperwork, facing these rules that seem designed to make you fail.
Yeah.
But to really grasp the essence of Kafkaesque,
Yes.
we need to dig into what makes his writing so unique
Exactly.
and what makes it so unsettling for so many people.
Right, and I think when we talk about the absurd in Kafka's work, we're not just talking about things that are strange or unusual.
Okay.
We're talking about situations that completely defy logic and reason.
Yeah.
It's about highlighting the meaninglessness or illogical nature of existence itself.
So it's more than just like waking up as a giant insect.
Yes.
Although, let's be honest, that image from the Metamorphosis
Right.
is usually what comes to mind when people hear the name Kafka.
Of course. It's iconic.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's not just about shock value.
Oh.
Think about Gregor Samsa, right?
Yeah.
He wakes up as an insect and suddenly all the societal expectations, the pressure of work and family, all of that is just laid bare.
Wow.
It's a very stark, almost brutal metaphor for the ways in which modern life can really dehumanize us.
It makes you wonder how our perception of Kafka would be different if Gregor had woken up as, say, a slightly larger beetle.
Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
It's that sheer outlandishness that makes it so unforgettable and forces you to confront these really uncomfortable truths about the human condition.
Absolutely. And the Metamorphosis isn't the only example of this.
Right.
Take the trial, for example.
Okay.
Joseph K. is arrested and prosecuted without even knowing the charges against him.
Yeah.
And this nightmarish scenario speaks to this very real fear of being judged and condemned by systems that we just don't understand.
It's like being lost in a maze with no exit,
Yes.
constantly facing these invisible arbitrary forces that are controlling your fate.
Exactly.
And this sense of being lost and powerless leads us to another cornerstone of Kafka's style:
Okay.
alienation and isolation.
Yes. His characters are often outsiders.
Right.
They're struggling to connect with others to find their place in the world. And this theme of alienation, it feels especially relevant today, even more so than in Kafka's time.
Right.
I mean, think about our modern society. We're hyper-connected, but so many people feel profoundly isolated.
It's like we're surrounded by people, yet still feel utterly alone.
Yeah.
You know? We're bombarded with information, but genuine connection seems harder to find than ever.
Yeah.
You could argue we're living in a Kafka story ourselves
It's true.
at this point.
Yeah.
And this feeling of isolation
Yes.
is often amplified by what we call Kafka's bureaucratic nightmares.
Yes, exactly. His characters often get caught in these labyrinthine systems,
Right.
whether they're legal, social, even existential. They're impersonal and rigid and ultimately absurd.
It's that feeling of banging your head against a wall,
I know.
trying to get a straight answer from a customer service chatbot, but just magnified to like a nightmarish degree.
Yes, exactly.
You're trapped in this endless loop of procedures and protocols.
Yeah.
Your individuality is slowly being chipped away.
And what's so chilling is that Kafka himself actually worked within a bureaucracy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the insurance industry.
Wow.
So he was writing from experience, which I think adds this really interesting layer of realism to his depictions.
It's like he's saying, I've been there, I felt that frustration, and now I'm going to put it all down on paper.
Totally.
But it's not just the content that's unsettling. It's his writing style, too.
Right.
It's deceptively simple. It's precise, almost surgical in its detachment.
Take, for example, the scene in the Metamorphosis.
Okay.
Where Gregor, who's now an insect, is trying to communicate with his family.
Yeah.
Kafka uses this very simple, direct language, almost devoid of emotion, to describe Gregor's desperate attempts to be understood.
Wow.
And this starkness, this absence of sentimentality, just makes the situation even more unsettling.
Right.
And it highlights Gregor's growing isolation.
Yeah, it's like he's holding up a mirror to the absurdity of the world, but without any judgment or emotional embellishment.
Right.
He just presents the situation stark and bare and lets the reader grapple with the unsettling emotions it evokes.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's precisely what makes Kafka so compelling. He doesn't offer any easy answers or comforting resolutions.
Right.
Instead, he kind of forces us to confront the absurdity and ambiguity of life head on.
Yeah.
But by doing that, he also opens up this space for us to question things, to interpret things, to find our own meaning within all the chaos.
It's like he's throwing down a gauntlet and challenging us to make sense of this world.
Yeah.
That often feels like it's teetering on the edge of madness.
Totally.
But, amidst all the darkness and the unease, there's also this subtle layer of humor.
Oh, absolutely.
Woven into Kafka's work.
Yeah, it's this dry, almost absurd humor that arises from the situations themselves.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of humor that makes you laugh out loud.
Right.
But it's more like a quiet chuckle at the sheer absurdity of it all.
He's like, oh, you woke up as a giant bug. Well, isn't that just a typical Tuesday?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's this bizarre juxtaposition of the mundane and the utterly surreal.
And that subtle humor actually, I think, serves to heighten the impact of those more serious themes that Kafka's exploring.
Right.
It's unsettling precisely because it catches you off guard.
So we've talked about these distinct elements of Kafka's style.
Yeah.
But what makes them so enduring? Why are we still talking about a writer from the early 20th century?
Yeah.
What is it about his work that seems to transcend time and cultural boundaries?
I think it's his uncanny ability to tap into those fundamental anxieties of the human experience.
Yeah.
Fear of the unknown, the struggle for meaning and purpose,
Right.
the feeling of being trapped by systems beyond our control. These are all themes that are as relevant today as they were a century ago.
Maybe even more relevant.
I think so.
In our current world,
Yeah.
I mean, we're facing ever-increasing complexity, rapid technological advancements, constant information overload. It's easy to feel lost and powerless in the face of all of that.
It is, and I think Kafka's work provides this framework for understanding and coping with those anxieties. It's not about offering easy solutions,
Right.
but it's about acknowledging the absurdity and the ambiguity of life and finding ways to navigate those complexities.
It's like he's saying, look, the world can be a strange and unsettling place.
Yeah.
You're not alone in feeling that way.
Exactly.
And there's a certain comfort in that shared experience, right?
I think so. And there's also something to be said for the power of his imagery. Like, Kafka's metaphors, they're so vivid and enduring that they've become part of our collective consciousness.
Okay.
The man turning into a cockroach, the trial with no clear charges, the castle that you can never reach.
Right.
These images have become shorthand for the kinds of existential dilemmas that we all grapple with.
Yeah, they've taken on a life of their own.
Totally.
Far beyond the pages of his books.
Yeah.
Now, since you're interested in writing, we want to make sure we connect this back to you.
Okay.
We've been unpacking Kafka style. But how can you, as a writer, actually use some of these techniques in your own work?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's important to remember that Kafka was a master of using simple language to convey complex ideas.
Okay.
He didn't rely on flowery prose or convoluted sentences.
Right.
His writing was clear, concise, and direct.
It's like he's stripping away all the unnecessary fluff.
Exactly.
And getting straight to the heart of the matter.
Now, this doesn't mean that your writing has to be devoid of style or personality.
Okay.
But it does mean being mindful of your word choices. avoiding unnecessary embellishments and really focusing on conveying your message with precision.
It's about making every word count, like a sculptor chiseling away at a block of stone to reveal the form within.
Another key takeaway from Kafka is his ability to create a sense of atmosphere and mood.
Okay.
You know, his stories are often steeped in unease, this feeling that something is just a little bit off.
It's like walking into a room and feeling a sudden chill,
Yes.
even though there's no logical reason for it.
Precisely. And he achieves this not through explicit descriptions, but through these subtle cues and carefully chosen details.
Interesting.
Think about the lighting in a scene, the sounds that your character hears, the way they move through the environment.
Yeah.
These seemingly small details can have a huge impact on the overall feeling of your story.
It's about creating that immersive experience for the reader, letting them feel the story rather than just read it.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to embrace silence and negative space. Sometimes what you don't say is just as important as what you do say.
It's like the pauses in a piece of music.
Yes.
They give the notes space to breathe, to resonate.
And finally, remember that Kafka was a master of symbolism.
Okay.
He used metaphors and allegories to explore complex themes and ideas.
Right.
So think of Gregor's transformation in the Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
It's not just about a man turning into a bug.
Right.
It's a metaphor for alienation, for feeling dehumanized by society.
So what you're saying is don't be afraid to use symbolism in your own writing.
Exactly.
It can add layers of meaning and depth, allowing the reader to draw their own interpretations and connections.
But remember, symbolism works best when it's subtle and integrated into the fabric of your story.
Right.
Don't force it or try to be too clever. Let the symbols emerge organically from the narrative and allow the reader to uncover their significance on their own.
It's like planting seeds in the reader's mind.
Yeah.
And allowing them to blossom into their own unique interpretations. Yeah, it's like you're giving the reader a key to unlock a hidden door in the story.
Right.
But it's up to them to decide if they want to open it and what they might find inside.
Exactly.
You know, it's exciting how Kafka's work just sparks these unique connections in your reader's mind.
And, you know, speaking of connections,
Yeah.
it's incredible how Kafka's influence extends far beyond just literature.
Right.
Like, we see Kafkaesque elements pop up in films, music, visual arts.
Oh, yeah.
All sorts of creative expressions.
Like his ideas have seeped into our cultural DNA.
Totally.
And are influencing how we view the world.
I think so.
And ourselves within it.
Think about films like Brazil or The Matrix.
Okay.
Both of them draw heavily on Kafka's themes of bureaucratic nightmares and the struggle for individual identity in an oppressive system.
And even in music.
Yeah.
You have bands like Radiohead, whose lyrics often capture that same sense of unease and existential angst that permeates Kafka's writing.
It's fascinating how a writer who doubted his own abilities so much and even asked for his work to be destroyed ended up having such a profound and lasting impact on our culture.
It makes you wonder what other hidden gems might be out there just waiting to be discovered.
Totally.
But back to you, dear listener, in your writing journey.
Okay.
What's the one key takeaway you'd offer someone who's just starting to explore Kafka's world and wants to apply his techniques to their own work?
I think I would say embrace the discomfort.
Okay.
Kafka's work isn't always easy to digest.
Yeah.
It can be unsettling, sometimes even disturbing. But within that discomfort, I think lies a really profound truth about the human condition. So don't shy away from those difficult emotions. Explore them, question them, and see where they lead you in your writing.
That's such a valuable insight.
I think so.
It's like saying, don't be afraid to go to those dark places in your imagination.
Yeah.
That's where the real magic happens.
Exactly. And remember, as you go deeper into Kafka's world, there are tons of resources out there to help guide you.
Okay.
We've included links to some excellent articles and analyses in the show notes.
So be sure to check those out.
Yes.
And most importantly,
Yeah.
don't be afraid to get creative and have fun.
Totally.
Use Kafka's work as a springboard for your own unique expression.
Embrace the absurd experiment with language and see where your imagination takes you.
It's been an amazing journey.
It has.
Exploring the world of Franz Kafka with you.
I agree.
Hopefully our listener has gained some valuable insights and maybe even a spark of inspiration.
For sure.
For their own writing.
Remember, sometimes the most profound truths are found in the most unexpected places.
Right.
Just like in the works of Franz Kafka.